everyone. A follow-up video to what my days went. As you know, my 5-year-old was brought in for testing for no reason. Apparently they're doing that to a lot of children. If they just show any cold symptoms, they're brought in. But the testing itself, which is disgusting, and I want to tell you what it's like. His mom had to do it. My son's mom had to do it. She went to the facility, they gave her a kit, and she went into this sort of portalet area to do the testing, and there were several others there, and she said she heard kids screaming and crying as they were getting tests in the other room. So she brought Will in, and of course that's what happened when you stick this down a child's nose and throat. So I'm just telling you, if you believe this is acceptable, and if you think this is right for the sake of health, you're mentally ill. Have a good night.
So that was Sean Collins.
Sean Collins, yeah.
No relation.
None, no. Yeah, so he's a comedian, he's American, but he was in Sweden, I guess?
Yeah, I first saw that tweet, on my Twitter feed a couple days ago or something, and then I know that Computing Forever mentioned him in this morning's video that he did. So today's Tuesday, September 29th, right?
Yeah.
So we're a day late with
right.
With
So this is a different bookmark. We should probably speak up a little bit more. But
yeah.
So this is a different kind of bookmark. We thought we'd try something different. Today's the kitchen table episode, and we wanted to just kind of talk and keep it casual.
Yeah. The tweet goes back to something that I had said, at the beginning of all of this, when I said, in March, when the state was first locked down and the governor closed all the schools and all the businesses and told everybody that we should shelter in place as much as we could for a virus or whatever. I was like, okay, so these are the series of things that we're going to be happening, that we're going to be seeing, that are going to be happening, that we're going to see. We're going to see people filing bankruptcies. We're going to see lawsuits. We're going to see a breakdown in society itself. We're going to be seeing those that are, pro COVID-19 or pro the virus, and those that are anti-virus. So we're going to see a split in society in ways we've never seen before. We're also going to see abuse, like domestic abuse, on the rise. And now we're seeing the thing that I talked about before, which is first we saw elder abuse, which I said we're going to see, and then now we're seeing child abuse, but not at home, which is what everybody suspected. Everybody kept saying in the very beginning, oh, we're going to see a rise in child abuse at the home.
Well, I think that probably did happen. It's just that it's not being reported.
Right, but what we are seeing is an incredible rise of child abuse, at the hands of teachers and schools and parents. Parents are either really stupid or just not educated, and I'm really tired of making excuses.
I am
for these
too,
people.
and
like I'm tired of the stupidity. I'm tired of the smugness.
Yeah.
I'm tired of this idea that it's okay to harass and abuse a child to the point of it screaming in pain for no reason. Like this is like crossed over into sadism. This is crossed over into sadism, like sadistic sadistic abuse.
It's one thing to abuse somebody, right? It's another to enjoy. I mean, sadistic abuse entails that they're enjoying it.
I think they are. Like, that's just it. I actually think that
there's something to that.
That they're really enjoying it.
And okay, so going back to what you were talking about, I noticed right from the beginning that we were all being set up for this kind of crap, because there was deliberate in retrospect, it was deliberate. It appears, or it felt deliberate. At the time, there was just like contradictory information, just like there is now. But like it was really contradictory then, in terms of like the point where it's like the kids that were on my van, okay, were going, but kids aren't susceptible. The kids knew it. They were 5. They were 6. They knew that they weren't susceptible to it. But then they're like, why do we have to leave school?
Right.
Why do we? And they were asking me this in the van, like,
Right.
and it turned out to be the last day that we ever saw each other.
Right.
Right. And right before they shut everything down, it was on a Friday.
Right.
And they were, they were expecting to be, out of school for maybe a week.
Right.
The one kid's
it
backpack was
2
just
weeks
like overflowing.
to fly
Yeah,
the
2
curve,
weeks or
right?
whatever. And
Yeah.
and they were all upset because they didn't know why they had to leave school, right?
Right.
And it was really, and I agreed with them, and they kept asking me questions, and I couldn't answer them, And so it felt like, there was this like deliberate, I guess even then to me, I just didn't have put my finger on it, that it felt deliberate. That there was like deliberate disinformation going out there.
Sure.
And then I would be riding on the public bus, the public transportation, and I'd hear like people do here in Pittsburgh. They kind of like
Tell you their
it's
life
always
story.
life story, and also sort of this ongoing sort of gallows humor that goes on, and like this woman, she was probably my age or a little bit older, and she was like, yeah, well, I gotta be careful because it goes after the old people and blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh god.
Yeah.
So
this thing is just, I don't even know like how to I've lost my patience. Like, I have no more patience. It's been 6 months
right.
of me going, okay, well, we have to take the fact that all of these people are being inundated with propaganda. Propaganda are like bombs. So if we were a brown country that had like an oil reserve that the United States would want, or some kind of mineral that the United States wants, if we were a brown country, they would be dropping little bombs in neighborhoods to terrify and terrorize, local little neighborhoods. Schools would blow up, hospitals would blow up, things like that. We would be making our announcement that we're here and we want your stuff. And but because it would be unheard of for the United States to terrorize and terrify its own people.
Right.
They put up posters about masks
Right.
on all the store windows, on public transportation.
Right.
They do a bunch of rehires with your local markets and your corporate run businesses like Starbucks and Home Depot. And they get rid of all of the people that are customer service based, and they put in soldiers that have been indoctrinated into terrorizing you.
In the form of clerks.
Right, in the form. So it's a war campaign. War has been waged on us in very real ways, but instead of using actual bombs, they're using bombs of posters and bombs of propaganda and bombs of it's on your airways every time you turn on the radio, every time you turn on the TV, every time you look at your social media feed.
Right, exactly. So 2 things. One is that this, you going back to what you were saying, so you called this from the beginning, and I was saying to people pretty early on.
Is that our kitten?
That's our cat at the door.
She likes to throw herself at the back door. So if you hear pounding or whatever,
thumping.
She usually finds toys and then she'll throw them against the door and play with them.
Yeah. That's the weirdest
Okay,
thing.
go on. Yeah.
Oh, so
sorry.
So pretty early on, I knew this was propaganda, and I was telling people, it's like, look, it's probably not a fake virus, something that they created. It's probably not even a real anything. It's
nothing,
because it's cheaper for them to make a campaign, to do a campaign of marketing and propaganda than it is to create a virus in the lab and then release it. On top of that, it's easier to control a marketing campaign than it is to control a virus out in the environment.
Right.
Right.
And it's easier to.
So why, what's to say it wouldn't blow back on the people that released it in the first place, right? So it's easier to do that. And then the second thing along those lines is what you were saying the other day, and that is that this is a not just propaganda. This is an out and out campaign of psychological warfare.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And Julie released or put out a link about it was an English document.
Yeah, it came from the UK government. It's called Mindspace.
Yeah, and it's an acronym. So it's not even like it's not Minecraft, it's not MySpace, it's Mind.
Yeah, it's an acronym for. Yeah, I don't have my notes in front of me, but it's very immersive, and you can't get away from it. And even if you don't have a TV, and even if you don't have a social media feed, there she is.
She is.
Hi, kitten.
You want to come in? Okay.
Wow.
But that's just it. It's like
Roxy made an appearance for Bookmark today. So Roxy attached herself to our screen, our back screen, like about a year ago. She was starving. She's still a little bit feral. So we.
She's doing the classic in and out cat thing.
Yeah. So we brought her in, to take care of her. We got her fixed and we got her chipped,
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah. So she's still a little alley cat, but she sleeps with us at night. So.
Yeah, and her mother is still is also feral and still alive,
Mm-hmm.
and also very young. So the two of them, you can see them walking around the neighborhood together, Roxy and her mom. So.
And she, she's messing around today.
Yeah, but, she really is kind of. I think it's because of the weather.
Yeah, the weather's changing, and
it's really warm yesterday. Today's like cold and rainy.
Yeah, but we'll see them out in the yard touching noses now and then. It's really cute, Yeah.
So the psychological warfare is really immersive, and I think that it goes many layers deep.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the people who are sort of like awake and diagnosing this whole situation for what it is, those who are far more intelligent than me and have a background in education, a couple of our patrons,
or academia or something.
A couple of our patrons are, I'm just like, wow, these people are really smart, and they put out really excellent commentary about the impact investments around children and education and what education really is these days. Anyway, based on, this document and just based on, me thinking, it feels like the psychological warfare, it goes beyond, just the people that they're trying to scare about a virus. They're actually waging war on all of us, even those of us that are awake, So those of us that are really engaged and intelligent and smart and actually look at science and understand, the way the body works, and then understand how this is, biofascism and technofascism. We think that we're immune to the psychological warfare when we're not.
We're not.
Because what's happening, and I'm noticing this kind of language. The language is starting to evolve with our woke community.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone from, wow, let me diagnose this for you. This is really awful, and it's really great that I'm diagnosing it for you, to holy shit, this is what they're doing to us, and holy shit, I can't deal with the fact that nobody is really truly understanding. Not enough people are awake to the technofascism and the biofascism. I've given you decades of information in a span of 3 to 6 months. I've worked my fingers to the bone typing out great explanations of everything, and you're still not getting it. I need to leave. I need off this planet. I need out of my town. So it's working. It's working. It's warfare on even the most intelligent and woke among us.
Yeah, because it's playing on, and I
your stress levels can't handle
exactly.
it.
And I had a weird dream last night. Or this morning, and it was a dream about like this huge giant bug, and it
didn't start out.
It didn't start out that way. It was
right.
a small thing. It was a smaller bug, and it looked like what the kids used to call potato bugs. They were like these. They were about that big.
Yeah, potato beetles, right?
Yeah, and they would like, you dig them up when you were digging in your garden. I think I've even found them here in PA, but like in California, I'd see them all the time.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing them all.
And they'd have like a striped abdomen.
A hard shell.
Yeah, not like a hard shell, and they'd be like, you know.
And they have a million little.
They have like 6 legs, and then they've got like, you know, the
and the little
mandibles.
Right.
Right. They're really freaky. They look like giant ants, and they're really ugly.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, they're I think they're like prehistoric. I mean, it feels like when you look at them, they look really prehistoric.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so
you had a dream.
That was in a fish tank kind of like terrarium or something, and it reacted to the water, and I called it a water bug to myself in the dream.
Sure.
And I saw it like dive under this thing because I had added water to this thing. I was in a building that was being refurbished, and I was sort of in a pit, so it was like a warehousey kind of place, and I was in a pit. And I was down there with some other people prior to that, and they had all like closed their laptops and walked out.
And split.
Yeah. And for some reason, water got added to this tank. I guess I was just taking care of things before I left. And this bug dove under, and then it came back out, and it was bigger, and it started growing bigger, and then I was like, uh-oh. And I got out of the pit, and it had come out of the tank, and then it was like coming up to the ladder, and it was getting bigger as time, you know, as it went on.
It's like The Shape of Water, like that movie. Remember that movie?
Yeah.
You know? I think what you're dealing with is, okay, so there are certain people that, you know, the idea that the people have closed up their laptops and left. So these are people that are like, you know, the situation is bad, it's going to get bad, I'm out of here. But because you are who you are, you have an investigative, curious mind, you also don't live in fear.
Right. And I take care of things.
And you take care of things. That's the thing I think that's really, especially with the gardens and everything, the house, you know, you're always taking care of things. So you stuck around to take care of things. Unfortunately, that was, you know, you put yourself in danger by doing so, because the beast, whatever this tiny little thing that was nothing more than a bug, you could have squashed it under your foot at one point.
Right.
But it was allowed through whatever reason, it was allowed to get bigger and bigger and bigger until you said earlier it was the size of a dog. It was the size of a small dog.
Yeah.
And it had crawled out of the tank. And was it chasing you, or you were afraid?
I was afraid because it was making its way up to where I was.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and I didn't want to deal with the mandibles.
Right. So you have to think about what that means and how that's interpreted, and how you can then interpret it to our audience and say, you know, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. I think what's happening with so many of our woke friends is that they're not taking care of themselves.
No.
They're really trying to, like, literally save the world. And it's hard when you don't have, like, what they have at Trafalgar Square, or in
outlet,
Berlin, or in Toronto. There is no outlet. There are no hundreds of thousands of Americans getting together.
A lot of us feel isolated.
And you don't see hundreds of thousands of Americans getting together and descending in one focal, you know, localized area. Like Trafalgar Square is dedicated for the people. You know, areas of the Berlin were dedicated for the people. Same thing with Toronto. You know, you don't see that in the United States. You don't see hundreds of thousands of people descending in Pittsburgh, in a community, in a, you know, and it's because the whole of the United States has been co-opted by Black Lives Matter. But that's a different issue. So I think what's happening with our super woke tech crowd, followers, contributors, supporters, patrons, believers, whatever you want to call them, I think what's happening is they have all this information, but they don't have hundreds of thousands of people that are coming out. So there's no outlet, like you said.
Yeah, there's no outlet.
So it's really, it's hurting people.
Yeah, and that isolation doesn't help, and we're seeing people self-medicate that, you know, shouldn't be, and,
yeah.
you know, and So it's hard for everybody that's aware. Then on the other hand, what we're seeing on like social media are people who are somewhat aware. They're not able to articulate like the folks that we're talking about, or even us, that they don't have that kind of outlet where they're articulating this thing,
right,
in a way that's meaningful, and they're using, either magical thinking to drive their ideas, or they're going back to what we were talking about a couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago, about how people always in the United States always they always think like they put their autonomy and their self in the hands of a hero. Right?
Right.
We're always looking at, people talking about heroes. Oh, they're my hero. Oh, heroes. Oh, the guy bringing in the shopping carts is a hero. It's like, okay, let's stop with that.
I can write my own shopping cart if that's necessary. I don't need a hero to do it.
Right. Exactly. And we see this rhetoric all the time. And I'm not like we're gonna like we pissed somebody off locally that like went after us.
Oh, this was a while ago, but
because we made a comment about that, but it's less about the people bringing in shopping carts and more about the rhetoric of heroes and like everybody is a hero who does something. It's like, okay, let's stop with that, because people now are starting to think. We got a comment recently like, I wish that Or do you think that there's a secret group or an organization sort of like the Kingsmen that will save us?
Kingsman is a movie. It's actually a really good movie. It's really entertaining. It's really fun.
It's sort of like a.
But no, you
sort of
idiot.
like a James Bond ensemble piece.
Right. Yeah. But no, there is no secret organization with umbrellas that are disguised, guns disguised as umbrellas that are going to save us.
Right.
You're looking at the people that are going to save you. Look in the mirror. That's who your heroes are.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why this latest video that we did, this latest documentary called Deconstruction, which is why I did a montage of our friends.
Right.
Just our friends.
Yeah, at the end.
At the end. Nobody famous, nobody with high social media popularity.
Right.
But we can show a clip of our latest
okay, yeah. Let's
video right now.
Let's show that. Okay, let's roll that.
Your life and how you will be affected by the decisions these committee members make does not matter. What does matter is that these committees are acting in ways that benefit corporations and the economy of a given region and not of individual states. More importantly, these compacts, as they become more established, will begin to replace the federal and state governments of the United States, along with the constitutional protections provided by the state and federal government, in order to remove these protections from citizens and subjugate them to corporate and global governance.
Okay, so that's from our latest video. We're calling it a documentary, but it's a video essay.
Yeah.
Because documentaries are longer format, and they're sponsored by PBS oftentimes.
Right.
We're not sponsored by
patrons.
we're not sponsored by anybody, but 20
Better
patrons. Yeah, and but the essay format I like better because it's
loose.
It's loose. Yeah, it's more nimble than a documentary, and because we don't interview people,
right?
And we can just basically say, it's both opinion, but it's opinion based on research and information and facts.
And collections of different people's opinions and ideas.
Right, and we use those video clips, whether they're something from the news or something that a video artist put together, videographer put together. For a commercial or whatever, we use that to illustrate our points, and we've been using a lot more stock footage lately to illustrate our points, and I like that because it allows us to do more creative things with it, because it's not anything. It's just stock footage, stock images are just bland, right? But you can take that blandness and turn it into something else. So there's one sequence that I really liked where I've got. It was a ridiculous sequence. These people were at a desk or at a table, and they're all shaking hands with each other.
Right.
And it's clear that they're not models, or that this was an amateur video person who was trying to break into the stock footage world.
Sure, yeah.
Because that's why it was free.
Yeah, of course.
And these people were just like, they weren't actors, they weren't,
right.
and they were just ordinary people. But it was a ridiculous premise. But I took that because it actually worked for.
It worked for what we were saying. In
Exactly.
The script. Yeah.
Right. And then in that point of the script, I superimposed $100 bills laying down on top of it, and so it really became a powerful image.
Right.
By combining those two things together. So that's one of the things that
That's why it's a video essay and not necessarily a documentary.
Right.
But we call it documentary because the term video essay has just come about in the last year. I think it was Philosophy Tube that
Aaron Gobra?
Was it Aaron Gobra? Because Philosophy Tube said in a tweet about a year ago, they said, somebody asked me what what it is that I'm doing on YouTube, and he's like, I don't know. And they were like, well, it seems more like a video essay. He's like, that's a great way to describe.
Yeah.
So we didn't coin the term, but it is a fairly new term as far as like the YouTube niche, like
right.
So or the alternative media, so to speak, niche. So it went from alternative media being like, for us it's been a really weird evolution. So it went from being like, I don't know, think of like a really like TNT, like not TNT, sorry. TYT,
right.
the Young Turks. So before, so we left NPR and started watching the Young Turks probably around 2015. And then we left the Young Turks and started watching even more like random and obscure commentators on YouTube,
right.
because the Young Turks was still playing fealty to mainstream media and playing fealty to the mainstream dialogue.
Right. Well, they got funding from mainstream
and they
media.
got funding from mainstream media. They got like millions of dollars, and we were like, So now they were starting to parody bullshit that we didn't, that we could visually see was antithetical to like the working class.
Right.
So that's kind of where we were like, wait a minute, we're still in class warfare here, and no one's,
right.
and even so-called alternative media isn't talking about it. So we wanted to move more into like, anarchist theory, working class commentary. We wanted to see that, and so we just kept getting more and more into more of this kind of stuff, right? So,
right.
But now it's even evolved past that. So people, because they have time on their hands, they're no longer just sitting in front of a microphone.
Right.
And for those who do and interpret the news, those are people like Corbett and Church Dog and other people.
What's her name? What's her name? Has doves.
Holly.
Holly, yeah.
So on Politicon.
Yeah.
These people are absolutely necessary. Like, we need people to interpret the news.
Yeah.
We need people to say, look, this is what the news is telling you. Now, this is based on my research, and this is based on what I know, and so this is what the news isn't telling you the complete truth. And I think we need people like that.
Right, and okay, so then we were bitching about that a couple weeks ago, and here's the difference between what we were upset about, or irritated by, I guess is a better word. The people that just that make money by just reading the newspaper, as opposed to people who
actually work, who actually do the research.
They do the research, but then they interpret it for you, and so they have their own analysis of the story. Which makes it interesting, right? So you get people interpreting, what maybe a mainstream article came out and said, or and some of it is pure intuition and just basically making an assertion, we do that a lot, and some of it. They will track, the trend and show you, I think this is my hypothesis.
Right.
And here's the data that shows that, and so this is what I think is the case.
Yeah,
right?
I like that. I don't have a problem with that. Yeah. I think, but what I'm saying is that in general, a broad, if you look at the evolution of like the YouTube scene, so to speak, or the alternative media scene. It's gone from people, reading the news and interpreting it to it's gone to next level.
Mm-hmm.
And Truth Stream Media was next level,
right,
with their vision, taking artistic interpretation.
Right.
They came from Alex Jones, so they already had a huge following.
Right.
They were already theatrical to begin with, so they took their backgrounds, their film background, they took their audience from Alex Jones and were able to bring it over to their brand. And then you have people like us who, back in 2015 when you were like, I want to start a brand called Book of Hours, I want to start a page, a platform called Book of Hours, and I want it to be video essays, I want it to be creative, I want to use art and imagery and music. And I was like, wow, that sounds great. But instead of following what you wanted back 4 or 5 years ago, I was like, but all these people are getting really popular because they're just sitting in front of their Facebook pages and talking, or they've created YouTube pages and all they're doing is talking.
Right.
And so
we were following Lissignan at the time.
We were following the examples and the way that other people had been able to achieve their success. And it wasn't working for us because we were going against who we really are.
Right.
Now this is who we really are.
Right, so we've come back.
So we've evolved.
Bookmark has kind of come back to that format a little bit.
A little bit, but it's deeper.
It's different and deeper. Yeah,
deeper than that.
And we just talk, right? And we have when we started this, we were coming up with topics, and we still may do that. But today we just wanted to do something kind of casual.
We just wanted to wrap because now that children are being abused, and ever since we saw Sean Collins' tweet, and children are being abused and also being brain damaged.
I think this was our concept to begin with Bookmark as well. Because we were doing some audio clips. We were just sitting at the table and doing audio commentary, and putting it out on what is that? Twitter. Using Periscope. And and they felt very natural, but we had a very, very minuscule audience for that. So we thought, well, let's try it on video and not be as formal as we used to be.
Yeah.
But it's funny. Yeah. So it's funny because you mentioned TruthStream. I don't even feel like they influenced us in the move to the essay format.
No, not at all. Not at all. We didn't need anybody to influence us. All we did was follow our own original vision. And
maybe Philosophy Tube to some degree, because it was nice watching. Right, because it was nice watching their progression.
Right.
And they've gone in a completely different direction than we have. But then there's Full Cult. Right.
Pro Cult, So Pro Cult was definitely ooh, they're good, and they were definitely influences. As far as not influences politically, okay. When we say influence, we're coming from the
art,
from the art, the artistic position. Not that Pro Cult are hardcore communists.
Yeah, they're Marxists.
Okay, and Marxists, and they believe in the NHS, and they're English, so they believe in the NHS, and they believe in the virus and all that stuff.
Right, that's why we stopped watching them.
I still watch their stuff, and they still tweet me, and they're very kind, incredibly kind individuals. But and I've noticed a lot of Marxists actually are very kind. Modern Marxists.
Yeah, well, there's some other ones that are really awful too.
And there are some other ones that are really,
but you can say that
which I have to block.
But you see, you can say that about everybody. Right, so
well, it was like when Anna Brees, she was a mainstream media woman who was fired and has since created Brees Media, her own brand, and it's just because of the fact that she had following in the mainstream world, her media brand has shot up to great popularity very quickly, but it's actually not. And so, before I go on with my original point of when what you said about how people are, everybody is
across the spectrum. Yeah,
everybody is not nice, and everybody is nice. You know what I'm saying? So she went up to. Before I say that story, I need to explain that a lot of people like Lusignan and Stauber and Zoan Politikon and all these people, we were like, how is it that they are so popular so fast? TruthStream Media. How is it that TruthStream Media has, 250,000 followers on YouTube, and we have 1500. And we do much better work than they do, in my opinion. I mean, as artistically, right?
Yeah.
Aesthetically, we do better work than they do.
Aesthetically, yeah.
And it's because they came from Alex Jones. It's because they had a core of fans that they could
Truth Stream, yeah, absolutely. I feel like
that they could dip into. So those
Right.
core of thousands of fans that they had followed them over to their own brand. Same thing with Anna Brees, who started Brees Media. She was mainstream, everybody knew her, so they left the mainstream outlet that had fired her and followed her over to Brees Media. Same thing with Debbie Lusignan. Debbie Lusignan had a core of people, same progressive, had a core of people because she, in her hometown of, Massachusetts, a small town in Massachusetts, she had run for office. She had already had a pool of like 30 to 40,000 people that were already following her. So it was easy for her to generate, I think when she left social media altogether, she had topped out at like about 750,000 followers, like on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, or maybe not that much. Maybe it was like 500,000 or something. But the point is that all of these people who are so popular that everybody wants us to listen to, it's like I'm not interested in listening to people that don't need me because they already have their core.
Not only
base.
that, but I feel like a lot of times our analysis is like far superior to that stuff.
Oh, well, yeah, because we have a corporate background, so we understand about this entire episode of COVID-19 is nothing more than, a TV show, corporate backed. Yeah. It's just corporate. It's basically, it's more than propaganda. Right. It's total psychological warfare. It's marketing.
And it's definitely an attack by the corporate sector via media and marketing.
Right.
Well, let's get back to like what we were talking about with the.
Really quickly. So Anna Brees. So before when I said some Marxists are really nice, but then again I've had to like block some as well. Like the other day. Anna Brees walked up to at the Trafalgar Square protest last Saturday. She walked up to this older couple who were in rain jackets, or matching rain jackets, and they looked very. They looked like a couple of pensioners who probably live a fairly nice life. They can probably vacation overseas every year. They just looked the part. Like if you were to meet us in person, you would never really, you would never know that. You know what I mean? Political, yeah. So she's like, well, you don't look like a couple of anarchists. And the woman, who was probably in her 60s, was like really offended. She was very sharp, short hair, like a very sharp looking woman. And she was just like, what the hell? Like, so but I don't think can't just like.
Yeah, but I don't think they were anarchists. I think that she was saying that because people who were attending the rallies were being accused of being anarchists.
Well, okay.
They were just like really middle class, and she was like.
So I mean, everybody. When you say the term anarchist, it's like that idiot Cheryl Brinkman in San Francisco, who's on the board of the MTA for San Francisco and is a complete and total fascist liberal. She accused us. She like cornered us in our own entryway in our apartment one day and was like, "Well, you can't have anarchy like that." And JP and I looked at each other and we're like, "Community gardens, communities helping each other outside of political fascism."
Yeah, and I forget what the context was.
It's like people think that anarchy is all, or anarchism is all about, throwing Molotov cocktails.
Or punk rock shows.
In Starbucks windows, or just having punk rock shows or whatever. Anarchism is a goddamn fucking, 1,000-year philosophy, whatever. But it's like it comes out of academia, and these so-called like highly intelligent liberals are like dumbing it down to breaking Starbucks windows. Right. It's like I can't deal with the stupidity anymore. Like you can tell I'm really frustrated. Like I'm just like these are the conversations we have in the morning. Like after breakfast, we're just like, so.
Well, I wanted to go back to maybe we can show another clip. We talk about how corporations and government are coming together to form these coalitions, what we used to call them multi-state coalitions.
They're interstate compacts.
Interstate compacts, and interstate compacts are what's being created in the place of like states. So it's a regionalization of the United States. So you've got, the one in the East Coast, which is like 7 states. You've got a Midwestern one, you've got a Southern one, and a Western one.
Right.
And, we can roll that clip.
In April of 2020, the governors of New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts announced the creation of a council of 18 representatives tasked with finding a coordinated way to reopen the economy after the forced shutdown caused by the COVID-19 pandemic response. The Northeastern Economic Compact, along with the compacts of the southern states, western and midwestern states, have not as of yet been approved by Congress. And although Congress can give its approval at any time in the future, it's unclear when this will happen or if it will ever happen at all. And it may be that this will be in stasis for an indeterminate amount of time.
So, that basically will, that basically kind of talks about, we did a little, not really an animation, but we did some graphics for that, and that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, and that's coming back to like what you were saying is we're being attacked by a corporate, and a corporatist mindset and organization coming at us,
And a lot of these, so a lot of the people that, support us and are patrons and believe in our work, a lot of them come from an academic background, which I know that there is corporate academia, and I know that there is, a whole hierarchy of bullshit that you have to go through in academia, in the university systems, and even in the
community colleges.
Community colleges or grade schools or public school system. Right. There's a whole hierarchy of bullshit, which is taken from the hierarchy of corporate bullshit, which you would deal with if you were in the corporate sector. Like, we both come from the corporate sector, and also marketing and retail. Me, and then him is design and marketing. So, but even though they were living and working and earning an income in that hierarchy of academic bullshit and all of the games that are played there, they may not have realized that there's a whole, psychological marketing strategy behind it that comes right out of the corporate sector. And so this is where I think we're getting the frustration from the academics. The real academics, not the fake academics, like the liberals who are like, oh, I went and had, I've got all of these degrees in marketing and sales and, finance or whatever. I'm talking about, like, actual academics, like Julianne Romanello, Alison McDowell, those people that are real academics. Right. So I'm like, I can sense their frustration, or I can see their frustration, and they've announced openly about their frustration, and it's because they're having to speak to a population that either doesn't come from a corporate background and has no idea what this is really about, or they're trying to speak to their colleagues in the academia world who are all about academics. So there's this real breakdown. There's this real. I
get it. We have a similar frustration in that, we know, because of our background, we mixed with those liberal managerial class people quite openly and very easily, and we still have a hard time avoiding them if we want to do anything or go anywhere, because those are the things that they do and like are the things that we do and like too.
Right.
And yet we have to deal with their bullshit and their love of the mask and their belief.
Just like we've always had to deal with their bullshit about everything.
So everything.
For years.
So if it wasn't Hillary Clinton, it's a fucking virus. Right. And before that,
And before that, it's other,
whatever it
was
is.
the PC culture. Remember when that just
and it's
jumped the shark?
And so all that shit is filtered through their worldview of like, well, you just buy something and take care of it. or you just, that's the way it is, because, we all have houses and we're fine, and nobody's poor, and right? So it's...
We were all born into a meritocracy. Like, we all have opportunities,
right,
and families that just,
nobody
give us money.
has a clue as to, they're so, and going back to what Molly Klein was talking about, she's like, they're all about the Trump show. It's Trump, Trump, Trump. It's all about the Trump show.
Right.
And it's like, they have no idea about what's outside, why people actually voted for the man. Right, or voted for the man, and why he became president. Because around here in Pittsburgh, because I have a job that I drive around and I go into areas outside of the core of the city, I see lots of Trump signs and flags. I mean, my God, I saw a flag the other day, and I kid you not, it had Trump 2020 in it, and it showed a picture of Rambo with Trump's face superimposed on Sylvester Stallone's face.
Right.
And so it was like
Okay,
you gotta so these people don't get why, they just think that they're idiots.
Right.
And it's not that they're idiots, it's because they're frustrated with the people in San Francisco who are calling them idiots.
Right. So I just want to talk about those big outrageous flags.
Yeah.
Those homemade flags, like what you just described.
Yeah, well, you can buy those, but yeah.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
You can buy them, you can make them,
Right,
whatever.
whatever.
So the goal isn't necessarily that you support Trump. You know that, right? So this is what...
This was flying in somebody's yard.
Right, but there's a reason for this. Okay, so I like baseball.
Yeah.
I like the Chicago Cubs.
Right.
And I like the San Francisco Giants. So about... How old am I? So about 25 years ago or so, I worked... maybe it's like 20 years ago, whatever. I worked in a law firm. And one of the lawyers was a huge San Francisco fan. He's born and raised in San Francisco. His last name, ironically, is Rothschild.
Wow.
But he's the guy that you would see when you see these people walking around, and I'm getting somewhere with this,
Yeah.
so just follow me. If you go to any city in America, he's the guy that you would see that would have a baseball cap of the home team. So for him, it was the San Francisco Giants, covered with pins, wearing a Giants jacket, kind of like you see in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh is
where
like, that's
everybody
normal, yeah.
wears like Steelers or Penguins stuff. Like nobody has anything.
Or
their wardrobe does not include anything else.
Right. Yeah. Or Pirates.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's that guy. Okay, with San Francisco Giants all over him. And he gave myself and the person I was with at the time, my boyfriend, he gave us tickets for box seats for the Giants. So we were literally on the field, and it was amazing. It was like, awesome, this is awesome, So we had these great seats, and he said, you know what you need to do to get on TV? You need to make a poster. So we made a huge poster with Harry Carey, and we put Cubs on it because the person I was with was a huge Cubs fan,
Right.
and he was like, he thought it was funny because here we're in San Francisco at Pac-Bell Park.
But were they playing the Cubs that day?
Yeah, they were playing the Cubs that day,
yeah.
and we were on TV.
No, they're playing the Indians.
And we were on TV. We were on TV. So that's the whole point.
Right.
The whole point isn't that, ooh, I believe in Trump. The point is to get people to take a picture or to video your poster
Right.
and put it on social media
Right.
and make it go viral. This is the culture that we live in. This
Right.
is the culture that we are. This thing with us going and getting on TV on the local news with our big Harry Carey homemade Cubs sign and everything, and I kept it for years. Like, I guess I got rid of it, but it was on TV. It was on the news, and they were like, "Wow, look at those Cubs fans,"
Right.
because we made a huge sign.
Right.
So that's what this is all about. This
Right.
is nothing more than self-made propaganda. It's nothing more than culture wars. It's nothing more than social media exploitation. Like, I want to be seen, and that's what that Trump sign is about. That's
Right. Well,
I mean, it's outrageous. The more outrageous and outlandish it is,
Yeah.
because we made Harry Carey's face into like a super cartoonish
Right.
caricature.
Right, of course. Yeah. Well, okay, so I take your point, and I have to say, it was until recently that I've never seen flags for candidates.
Right.
I'm seeing Biden flags.
Right. So it's
it's just part of the whole.
It's part of. It's a popularity contest.
Right.
It's who can I get? How can I get on TV? It looks good when you see like a whole row of Biden flags. It looks good aesthetically. This doesn't have anything to do with anything more than just. You're living in a movie. You're literally living in a movie.
Well,
there's nothing real.
We've all become these marketing, participants in a marketing campaign.
Exactly. We're including us. You know, we're participants in a marketing campaign. The downside of all of this is that, you know, all of these distractions with crazy Trump flags and a row of beautifully aligned Biden flags because they look good on TV or they look good on your social media, all of this is distracting from the fact that we are literally hurling at 1,000 miles per hour into biofascism and into techno-fascism.
Well,
and we've got
that's the whole point, right?
We've got 10% of the population, which is not a lot of people, 10% of the population going like this to make it happen and signing off on the funding to make it happen. Only 10% of the population are the managerial class, and of that 10%, almost the entire 10% lives in San Francisco, some of which who we know personally.
Right. San Francisco, New York, LA.
Right.
You know,
and Davos,
and Davos, and maybe in Chicago. Maybe.
And guess who's not in that mix of places we just spoke of? China.
Right.
Okay, people are like, oh, it's China. No, it's
China.
the whole fucking world. Mostly it's coming out of San Francisco, though.
You know,
it's the same thing with the .com explosion and all these stupid-ass unicorn companies that nobody needed were getting multi-million-dollar funding, and then a year later they were folding and they made off with millions of dollars in exit packages.
Or even like companies like Twitter. You know, they got, it's like, what the fuck do they do? What do they sell? And yet they're worth billions or millions, and they're in a huge building in downtown San Francisco. It's a gorgeous building, and they got tax breaks to move there, you know, in exchange for doing, you know,
which they
community
never did
service of some kind, and they never did them.
Right.
Yeah. And they got off scot-free for that.
Right. Meanwhile, you've got Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, going to the White House 500 times. What does the CEO of Twitter need to go meet with the president 500 times in the span of a few years? Like, seriously. Is Twitter really what you think it is?
It's over 100 times per year in the last 3.5 years.
Right, so why do you, and I also think he was going during the Obama administration too, so, you know, but the point is that why do you need so many visits to the White House? You know, same thing with Zuckerberg. Like, all of these social media, Silicon Valley, San Francisco-based companies are sending their people to Washington. Silicon Valley is taking over Washington, D.C. That's why we're all going to be in a digital currency, just like we all have digital avatars.
Well, it's already on the docket, right? There's already something put out there in the Senate, that will be voted on, and it's in
like a couple of months.
Right. Well, after the election, they're going to bring it up, right?
So as much as I'm like.
For a digital currency.
For digital currency, right. So just like you have a digital version of yourself through Facebook and Twitter and whatever other, if it's a digital platform, you know, so that's why when people are like, oh my God, Facebook, October 1st, what are they going to do? I'm going to leave Facebook and go to MeWe or Parler or whatever. It's like, that's great, but it's still digital. Your best bet is to do this. Invite people over to your kitchen table and have a conversation, have a bake sale, you know, build a house. Plant a garden, you know, give each other some high fives, have a
build
party,
a barn,
have each other, you know, give each other some high fives, you know, share some drinks, have a cookout, and work together, even if working together just means having a house party. Like, I'm serious.
Right. Well, it's got to start somewhere, right?
Because these are all anti-life and anti-human expressions of ourselves when we're just online. No matter what.
Well, and that's being exploited, right? That's now being exploited. So all the training that we've received for the last 15 years on social media
is training the AI.
It was training the AI, but it was also training the interactions that we conduct now in real life as well as online. So by in real life, I mean the so-called Karens out there, right?
Right.
Karens come from digital media. That attitude, that way of behaving, comes from
Digital media.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's transferring into the real world.
Right.
Yeah. We had one in March.
Right.
You know, we were making a video, and we never did anything with that video. I was incredibly traumatized by that experience, and even going back to the little footage that we took, I can't even look at the footage because it reinvents that trauma in me, so I have to ignore the footage.
Yeah.
It's on my phone and it's there, but I just so I guess what I'm trying to say too, if we go back to the very beginning of this, Sean Collins was I had to listen to my 5-year-old scream his head off because his brain was being punctured.
Mm-hmm.
Basically they were taking the cotton swab and putting it up through the blood-brain barrier. And if you're a parent and a teacher or some kind of school administrator or a school nurse, you're sycophantic, sadistic. I'm adding to what he said, but if you're any of those things, you're a sycophantic, sadistic piece of shit. And as far as I'm concerned, anybody who would do that to children, cause children to scream and cry out in pain and harm children like that needs to be up against the wall.
Yeah.
They need to go up against the wall.
Yeah.
And I'm just I'm appalled because there's people all over us who are but we have to test for the virus, and it's how do you escalate the language? I would like to escalate the language. I would basically like to say to people very clearly, why don't you just take your child out into the back, strip it naked, and beat the hell out of it within an inch of its life? Would you do that if somebody told you that it was for the safety of the community or or a virus? Would you still do that? Because basically what you're doing is you're puncturing the kid's brain, you're putting him in a mask, you're depriving his brain of oxygen, and you are creating a society of and a civilization of
idiots.
Right. You are literally going to have a whole brain dead generation of kids coming up. If the kids are 3, 4, 5, 6 now, and they're wearing masks 6, 7, 8 hours a day, even if it's just a couple days a week, they are already brain damaged.
Right.
It's already happened.
Yeah, it doesn't take much, especially for a young person.
Yeah, so I listened to that neurologist that Claudia Stauber translated for us, and this woman was basically you lose oxygen deprivation to your brain, you lose within minutes.
Right.
And you can't get it back.
Right.
It's the same people. It's when surgeons would tell people. So this is the American understanding of how the body works. Okay, surgeons would say to somebody whose foot is full of gangrene, well, I'm sorry, Mrs. So-and-so, but there's nothing we can do. We have to remove your foot so the gangrene doesn't spread to the rest of your body. This is the response. Okay. Okay, thanks for telling me. So the surgeon walks out of the room and is telling the nursing staff and the people on the floor, this patient whose foot I have to remove
is okay with that.
Seems to be okay with this. Let me try again. And so after a few different ways of explaining that the foot will need to be cut off, the patient says, well, I don't understand why you're so upset. It'll just grow back. So do you think that the brain cells that the kids are losing right now are just going to grow back? Because that's the feeling I get, especially from people around here.
Yeah.
It's
I don't even think they think that deeply about it. It's just we have to be safe.
Right.
We have to be safe, and that's why we're wearing the mask, because we have to be safe. So literally. So
there is a point at which stupidity becomes sadistic. There's literally a point where you have to speak in these extreme phrases and
So
terms.
it's, we have to find.
You're much more patient about it than I am.
Well,
I just don't even talk to people.
Right. Well, and we have to
I
find
can't-
ways to. I don't know what to say to that, and we need to find ways to answer that, because it's like, you can't just say, well, it's it's not a virus and blah.
No,
because you can't do that, right?
I don't even go there.
Right.
I mean, if I had an opportunity to stand in front of a group of mothers who are totally fine with putting, a mask on their young children's faces and noses and mouths for 6 hours a day, every day, I would say, why don't you just take him out in the back and beat him within an inch of his life?
Yeah.
Why don't you just take his head and bash it up against
So,
the wall?
along
Because
those
that's
lines,
what you're doing.
So as I ride home from work on my bike, I see a lot of things.
Yeah, he rides his bike every day.
So you see
That's
more
why
on a
he's
bike
in
than you
shape.
do. That's why you see things. You see things more on a bike than you do.
Yeah, get
in
a
car.
bicycle, everybody.
Yeah,
in the snow, too.
Yeah, in the snow. I ride in the snow. But anyway, so last week, on my way home from work, I see a woman standing at the bus stop with her 2 young children, and she's a young mother, and they both have masks on, and they're cute masks. And she's got her phone out, and she's getting them all posed and leaning back and taking their photo. And I'm thinking, God, we have to stop making this cute. We have to stop making this normal.
Okay, so maybe
And then-
maybe what we need to do.
And it's like
We make the propaganda, right? You make those Instagram
Yeah.
little 10-second Instagram beats, right? With your artwork. Maybe that's what we'll have to do. Maybe we'll just have to stop making this cute. You're destroying your kid's brain cells.
Right, basically,
You're
yeah.
literally going to be that child's caretaker. If a 6-year-old right now is wearing a mask, right now, then when he is 15, he will still have the intellect of a 6-year-old, maybe an 8-year-old, maybe a 10-year-old, but he will have the emotional and mental intellect of a child for the rest of his life.
Right.
He will not grow up he will not mature.
Right.
He will not use reasoning or critical thought. He will have no cognitive adult
Right.
concepts.
So the other thing that I saw was a guy.
It's like we can't even say it.
A guy had a T-shirt on that says "Freedom isn't free," meaning like that's what the patriot folks like to say. The folks that are pro-war and
everything
it's like,
about this.
freedom isn't free. And he had a fucking mask on his face.
Okay, so just
And
so
he's
you know.
like standing there, and
Right.
I rode past him, and I was like,
Okay, so just so everybody knows, freedom, no matter what color your skin is, no matter what part of the country you were born in, no matter what part of the world you were born in, if you were born under, Soviet rule, if you were born in communist China, or if you're born in Syria, or if you're born
in the United States.
If you're born in the United States, you are born with freedom. Freedom is not something you have to fight for.
and it's not something that your government grants you.
It's not
either.
something the government grants you. It is something that your government is supposed to protect. Your freedom is already in you. You're born with it, no matter who you are. So these people that say you have to fight for freedom, that's like when they were saying the war on terror. Okay, what is this, like a war on a feeling? Or the war on drugs? Like, these Orwellian bullshit,
Right.
idiotic phrases that
Right.
people just adopt into their lexicon is...
Right.
I seriously want to bash my head against the wall every day. I'm
know.
so frustrated all the time.
I know. Well, we should probably wrap up, but
We will.
I wanted to come back to the video that we just released. We didn't say anything about how you can see it. Now, if you're currently not a patron, and you haven't given us any money recently through different means, through say PayPal or our fantastic fall fundraiser that's going on Facebook, you can find that on our Book of Hours page on Facebook, then you haven't seen it. Okay, so you've seen a couple clips, but it's longer than that.
Yeah, it's
and,
a 30-minute
if you
video,
want
I
to see it, right now, you can make a donation to paypal.me/Book of Hours, and make a one-time donation of $7 or more to see this wonderful new video essay called Deconstruction, Or you can become a monthly patron at patreon.com. I'll put it down here. Patreon.com/Book of Hours, and you can become a member for as little as $2 a month. How else can they help us, Julie?
Just sharing our videos.
Share your videos, yeah. But if you want to see this...
if you want to see Deconstruction, then just make a donation to PayPal and we'll email you a private link.
Right. And if you become a patron on Patreon, you will have immediate access to it.
Right, so our Patreon page holds all of our work, and it's available usually a week before we make it available to the public.
Right. So...
but, we understand people are in the situation that we're in, and so if you could just maybe subscribe to our YouTube channel. I mean, I think that we deserve at least 10,000 subscribers. We're chugging along at 1,500, but I think that, which is great, but I don't see why, like, with the amount of work and talent that we have, why we're not at 10,000 subscribers.
I did a quick in-my-head calculation yesterday while I was watering the front.
Yeah, right.
Of how many hours it took to work on Deconstruction. Now, Deconstruction is one of our shorter videos. Not the shortest one, but, on the shorter side. And it took us at least 36 hours of time to put that together. And that's without the research.
That's without the research. It takes weeks of research. We have meetings. We treat Book of Hours like a business. We meet, I literally have to keep a calendar. A friend of mine was, witnessed sort of the way we interact, and he was like, damn, taskmaster over here. So, I mean, that's how we operate. So we're treating this like an essential part of this, historical archiving.
Right, yeah.
And archivists do a lot of stuff in the background.
Right.
And they're often underappreciated. And what we're doing is we're archiving, and then we are presenting that archive to you in a
visual format.
Visual music, scripted format that we write the scripts. So, I think that we are, we should be at about 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah, we should be. And people tell us this all the time. Why don't you have more subscribers?
Yeah,
well,
even people
share our videos.
In passing, like in real life, people are like, wow, your stuff is really good. Because we've shared it with our neighbors who don't really, there are some neighbors around here who just are like, this whole COVID thing is bullshit. Tell us more. Yeah. So we show them our videos, and they are like, okay. It's a little, it's a little hard sometimes for them to get, but most of our followers do get it.
Well,
thanks for joining today. Thanks for joining us at our kitchen table.
I'm out of water and I'm out of tea, so it's time to go. So we'll spin the tops and get things going. So we'll see how this format plays, and we'll see if we try it next time. And in the meantime, go to Patreon or PayPal and go see our new video. And if you haven't seen it yet, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Book of Hours is determined to remain an essential platform that offers a creative interpretation for lockdown skeptics and experts who have been censored by mainstream press. Thanks to your donations, we can carry on doing this essential work as working artists. These big issues of the day are vital and need to be heard. So please share our videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel, make a one-time donation on our PayPal page, but most importantly, please be a part of our team on our Patreon page. Go to patreon.com/Book of Hours and hit the blue button titled Become a Patron. Thank you.